Elphaba gets a little sexy and some sexy time.
Yeah,
like I saw
does.
thighs, I saw legs, I saw all kinds of things.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Were those sketches?
She's green through and through.
Hello, I'm Jacqueline Coley. Welcome to Seen on the Screen from Make It Universal and Rotten Tomatoes. We sit down with the people behind the stories that move us and ask, what have you seen on the screen that made an impact? My guest today is award-winning costume designer for Wicked and Wicked for Good, Paul Tazewell. Paul, welcome to the podcast.
It's very good to be here.
This is silly for me to say this because I'm sitting here with you, but can you tell everyone who you are and what you do with NBC Universal?
All right. I'm Paul Tazewell, and I am the costume designer for Good, the second part of the Wicked movie series.
And the first, where you won an Oscar for it and made history,
exactly.
and so many other things, which we're going to dive into when we get into some of the things that you've seen on screen. But as we're, now, by the time this episode is coming out, folks, hopefully, a lot of them will have already seen Wicked for Good. It's so funny. We're sitting here with these incredible costumes. I have to give a shout out to the Universal Archival team that made them available for our conversation here today. But I really appreciate how, as I'm looking at these, like the light catches the glitters on Glinda's dress, or you can see the different sort of textures and what Elphaba has. And it's all like this collaboration between you, the production designer, the cinematographer, sometimes props. I mean, so talk about how you as department heads sort of like come together and then make these magical moments, like, in the first one, seeing Glinda pop out of the bubble. That's a perfect example of like everything coming together all at once.
Absolutely. I started probably about 8 or 9 months prior to going to London. I was doing my own design work, kind of individually, and we were communicating through Zoom. And then once we all landed in London, which is where we filmed the both films, we were in the offices of the studio. And there was this one conference room, this huge conference room that we would call the war room. Mm-hmm. It was where we were planning how we were going to approach, both of these films. And we had the opportunity to put all of our designs up on the wall, and I could see and research and just anything that was influencing the direction of the design as well. There were huge tables that had all of Nathan's models on it, and so we would meet regularly. And we could talk through what each moment was going to be, and what the development of the characters was going to be, and how we were going to support that, and then get a weigh-in from Jon M, our director, and Mark Platt and the rest of the team. And so that process was very collaborative. It was very inclusive of all departments. And it made for a very cohesive look all the way through both films.
Yeah, you can really see it when you see part two. They're so distinctive, but they definitely are in conversation. Like, you can tell that you shot them at the same time. And since the Oscars, where you became the first Black man to take home the Oscar for Best Costume Design, I've seen you do so many things. I saw you at the Met with Janelle Monáe and your designs. I've seen more Paul Tazewell sort of stuff out in pop culture, but I'm just curious for you, Oscar night, what is your favorite memory? Because I know it's like a whirlwind and it feels like it just gets washed into it, but now that you've had some time since then, what do you think back of that night?
Remembering walking up on stage and looking out at the audience and seeing the rush of approval was life-changing.
I could tell you were pretty taken aback by it.
I was so blown away. And then, I remember looking down at Cynthia and Ariana, and there was just, this warmth that, just flooded my being. And, that was a huge gift to receive after having done, a whole career, a 35-year career. But to be acknowledged for that was, just really amazing.
Everybody was happy, but some of your Broadway family, I think, was like the most happy. I think Lin-Manuel Miranda was like the president of the Paul Tazewell campaign, and he was definitely like, that legacy is secure. He was like so happy for that moment. And I was happy to just be there and watch it. It was really special.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna dive into some of the things that you've seen on screen. Don't nobody bring me bad news.
That's from The Wiz, or The Wiz Live for me.
Yes. Which, again, I think it's incredible because you've been a part of some incredible moments on Broadway, some incredible moments on the small screen, and obviously now some incredible moments on the big screen with West Side Story and Wicked. But this one, it's Black history. Like, that is like, I remember we used to watch like The Wiz and First Thanksgiving. Like, that was like the Black sort of like, this is our holiday like event. What was it like for you knowing you're stepping into this? This is Michael Jackson, Diana Ross, and you guys are, granted, doing it for television, but you want to honor that legacy. What was that like for you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, that was a full circle moment. I mean, because when I was 16, I designed the costumes for The Wiz at my high school. And that was the first opportunity that I had to conceive and design of a full production. And so then, I also played The Wiz in that production. And so it's near and dear to my heart. The overall culture of The Wizard of Oz has been a part of my life for such a long time.
Are there any things that you kind of borrowed from The Wiz to just like sneak into Wicked as like a little thing for you, considering you've now been an award winner for both?
It's always different. I mean, my approach to any production is, to try and make it as original as possible, to have the vision be as original as possible. And it's influenced by the people that are directing and, what the venue is, and then also who's playing the roles. So it's, where different techniques might be similar. I mean, I have a sensibility that shows itself in different ways, but the creation of The Wiz Live was a different kind of presentation than the creation of Wicked, which the scope is much more vast. How we were depicting fantasy was, very specific to the films. So where there might be a bleed over in sensibility, I think that I was about creating a completely different vision.
And I love how you've done so much that you can actually sort of like have that where it does feel like a composer in a different genre. I do love that so much. And let's be real, that's like kind of like pretty iconic. Like, you've got an Emmy for The Wiz, and then you got an Oscar for Wicked, two very different things, but it's still me, and I still win. That's kind of cool. All right, we're gonna move on to our next quote. I'm gonna be free or die.
That would be Harriet.
Yes.
Spoken by one of my favorite actresses, Cynthia Erivo.
Yeah. Her first Oscar nomination.
And her first Oscar nomination, yeah. She was amazing. That was the first time that we worked together. I knew her from The Color Purple, just when she was on Broadway. And
that was where you were at Hamilton at the same time, right?
Yeah. And so I was very aware of the powerhouse that she is. But to have the opportunity to tell the story of a Black woman who changed, the lives of Black Americans so long ago, was really wonderful. And what she brought to that role, how we collaborated together, and then to have the second opportunity with Wicked, was really just beautiful.
Yeah, I think that's like a good pairing now if you think about it. This is one of those ones where you just tell directors, hey,
Yeah, I'm up for that.
You're like, yeah, I'm probably gonna be over that. That's good.
Yeah.
And a focus features title too, which I think, considering how much Harriet Tubman is a part of American history, the fact that it took that long for her to get a feature adaptation, I'm just so glad that it happened. And yeah, it was beautiful. You're killing it on all the quotes. We're also making sure that it's my stuff. So
right. Yeah, I sense a theme.
Just wear the throat.
That's Wicked.
Yes. And I was literally like, y'all really did this to me. Because all of the Ozisms, I'm always like, really though?
They're a lot of fun.
They're just doing it. But listen, Wicked was such a moment. Your stuff was in Target. They were girls dressing up in your costume. I mean, I'm kind of trying to put a little, Elphaba into trying to keep up with you, sir. I've seen how you just exist. So I'm like, we got to bring it for this one. What was something that happened that made you be like, that's kind of cool, I got to do that?
Oh gosh, all of last year, last season, the Target line, all the costumes that were inspired by Wicked, Cambridge bags, those were really, really sweet. Oh my gosh, there were so many things.
I mean, the one I'm thinking of is you had a category on Jeopardy.
That's right.
You can't even remember all of it. It's so iconic. And then
that was pretty great.
I think I saw you were didn't you help design what Ari and Cynthia wore to the Super Bowl? Like they had those special outfits that they wore?
They were all inspired by, what I had set up with the film.
That's so cool. Like, as I say, really from the Super Bowl to the Oscars, it was like pitch perfect. We're going to look more closely a little bit later about these costumes, but you had so many great details in the first Wicked. What's a detail that hasn't been discussed that you wish or would like folks to maybe when they go rewatch Wicked to check it out? Because even back here, I'm looking at these shoes. You never see them, but they're so detailed. What's that little thing for you that you hope folks see?
Oh my gosh, definitely all the shoes. I mean, you think about nobody ever talks about box shoes, but box shoes were based on the idea of a wooden shoe, because he was a woodsman. I mean, in the Wizard of Oz folklore, that he's a woodsman. So giving him elements that would give us this kind of fantasy, folk-like quality. But that's one of the things. I mean, I think that all the way through, I was trying to insert either ideas that were created and influenced by the Wizard of Oz film from 1939 or The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by Frank L. Baum. And, to try and get as many kind of Easter eggs into the look of the costumes. I mean,
I see it with Glinda's wand, obviously. That was the one, when I saw that, I was like, I love that.
Yeah. I mean, it's all the way, through the design, I was in heaven, and, also because I had access to a crew of amazing talents, dressmakers, tailors, 3D printers and laser cutters and cobblers, shoemakers and milliners, just everyone on site all at the same time, all working towards this one goal or two goals, these two films. And what they offered up, generously of their talent was, it made my life just soar.
I love it. The other thing I want to mention too, which doesn't get talked about, but it's where your decades on Broadway has really informed it, is these girls are not just standing and parking and barking. They're having to do stunts in this. Elphaba's got to get on a broom. I'm curious, do you have different versions of each costume for the various actiony moments? And how do you sit with Cynthia and say, all right, jump? How do you this is literally...
I mean, there were times when I would do that. I mean, it's very important for me that as well as the costume looking appropriate and beautiful, it also has to function, because the costume doesn't come to life until it's on the actor's body and they're actually performing. And so that is what I'm folding into the idea of the costume, and that informs the choices that I make around the kinds of fabrics that I use and how we're engineering the dress or the garment to move as well. It might be about underpinnings or, because, both of these, wonderful women wore corsets the whole way through.
Bless them.
And that was giving them a very specific kind of sculpted silhouette, and they were both very interested in that, very, down for, the torture that was potentially going to be. And even with Cynthia, I mean, who, wanted to do all of her aerial stunts. I mean, instead of having a stand-in do them, she was flying, through the air, whether it was in the studio or out, in the field. Her harness had to be able to fit over the corset, but under the costume. And so we probably had 5 different versions of a look she would have a hero, she would have her flying costume, then there would be a backup in case something happened, and then there were body doubles and then also a stunt.
That's
So
crazy.
there was a lot that was made, and all of them needed to be made to be the same. I mean, so that you couldn't tell if another one was swapped in for one reason or another.
I mean, I couldn't tell, but I was really like, let's be real, I was singing along. I wasn't looking that carefully. I'm sure somebody else more eagle-eyed would get it, but excellent job. So that was our quotes popcorn bucket. Now
Perfect.
we're going to dive into our true or false popcorn bucket. Look at
Okay.
You'll be fine. Trust me. You're going to be fine.
Okay.
You're going to be fine. Megan Hilty, as Madeline Ashton, has 6 costume changes in the song For the Gays from Death Becomes Her on Broadway.
Oh gosh. I'm gonna say true.
Yeah, you did that. You
Yeah.
really did that. So again, this is a Universal also production, which you did the costumes for it. Tony Award-winning costumes. The only Tony that was won for the show. That number is just so good. But it is like, when I talk about like you have to have Broadway costumes that function, I think every costume in that opening number is kind of the quintessential of that, including like, let's go and be real. There's a striptease in the middle of the show. Like,
That's right.
talk about getting that job where they're like, okay, yes, you're going to make these women look like, the best things ever. Also dowdy versions of themselves. Oh, and don't get me wrong, there's also going to be the most camp, like, Broadway musical right in the middle of it. Like, tell me that phone call. What was it like?
Oh my God. Well, I mean, it was a delight to receive it because I loved the original movie with Meryl Streep and Goldie Hawn. I mean, that was amazing. I remember guffawing my way through that film. And then to think about it as a musical was, it seemed really appropriate. But then, we got into it with Christopher Gattelli, our director, and you realize that, the way for this comedy to work is to make it a send-up of everything that it represents in a way, and when you're talking about a Broadway star, then you're looking at, the camp of Broadway musicals, and then making the most of that. So, that moment where Madeline has 6, quick changes. I mean, for me, and I've done a lot of Broadway musicals, there's always going to be some quick change moment, and I think that was probably set up from like Dreamgirls, and the magic of seeing somebody transform in front of your eyes. But with that number, we've decided that we were going to give her 6 different different looks.
She's in the outfit and you literally watch her transform like a magic trick on stage. So this is not off to the sides quick change. This is like, you let the audience see that you're quick changing. Yeah. You already knew how to do that, right? Like to hide the dress inside the other dress. Like, how do you even do that?
I mean, you just have to know how things are going to pack, or if they're going to pack, or, just, how you're going to orchestrate it. But the costume always has to have a place to go.
Yeah.
Whether it's going to stay on the actor's body, or it's going to go into the hole, or it's going to go, across the stage. So, and
also for those eagle-eyed folks that get a chance to see the show, which they absolutely should, still get your tickets. Dorothy.
Yes,
so like this is your 3rd Dorothy costume.
Yeah,
Paul.
Yeah. Well, I would say there's probably more than 3, but yes.
Also, the number that we're speaking of is called For the Gays, and it is a double entendre. Again, I just cannot talk enough about this show. It's fabulous. This episode is brought to you by Snapchat. Every day, millions of people use Snapchat to share the small things that make life big. Checking in with friends, sending love to family, or capturing what's happening in the world around them. It's how we stay close, even when we're apart. Wherever life takes you, you can always say it in a snap. Second true or false. The fuchsia patchwork jumpsuit and dramatic ultra maxi coat you created for Chapel Roan for the 2025 Met Gala was created using vintage materials sourced from eBay?
That is correct. It was collaboration with Condé Nast and eBay, and it was to upcycle items from eBay. So everything was sourced from eBay or needed to be sourced from eBay. And then, and I knew that challenge when I was approached to design for Chaperone, who's lovely. I mean, it was a wonderful opportunity. I developed the idea because we had the theme of the Met Gala, which was super fine, black tailoring. And I wanted to lean into the idea of the 1970s blaxploitation, funkadelic, kind of vibe, and it, kind of bleeds into, like drag icons like Sylvester and so really encapsulating all of that. Went to searching on eBay and started to find leather pieces. There were leather purses. Some very high end purses, and then some things that were not quite so high end. But putting together a collection of leathers and suedes that I could then patchwork together. And so we created an amazing outfit. I mean, she wore it so well.
She really did.
So wonderful.
She was definitely strutting.
Yeah.
And that wasn't your only collaboration for that night. You were a busy man that night. Let's be real.
I was.
That theme, I feel like they just said, we're going to give Paul a lot of work.
Yeah.
But one thing I think is interesting, because I don't think folks realize you have this illustrious career on Broadway, but it's almost like you have to ask to do the things that you can already do. So I know it's like, you do Broadway, well, that doesn't mean you can do film. Oh, just because you do film, that doesn't mean you could do, like, if you wanted to be a designer. And I think for you really in this next chapter, you really want to try and push to do more of that. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I mean, my interest is to expand as far as this moment will take me, because I'm a creative designer. My vision is much broader than just theater, definitely, or as it turns out, just film. And I really want to make sure that I'm expanding as far as I can into creating ways to incorporate my ideas into people's lives. I think that the start of that was my collaboration with Bloomingdale's and with Target, but I think that can continue in all kinds of products, and whether it's home or interiors.
What do you hope would be sort of the cultural impact of this next chapter, if there is one? What would you hope that you could achieve that way? What would you hope that when you look at how fashion can change things, what would you hope that your work could do?
I want to set a tone, and I want to make my mark as a strong designer of color that is changing lives and touching hearts and making a difference to people's lives. I mean, that's always been a priority, and it influences how I design for stage and for film. I always want to stand as a representation for forward thinking and inclusivity. And I think that we're at a time where that's very necessary to maintain that and maintain the power of creating beautiful things. And how that is additive to people's lives.
I love it. We're going to bring into our last trivia question.
Okay.
True or false? Elphaba's pointed hat in Wicked for Good is exactly the same as it was in the first movie.
False.
Yeah, it's different. He's like, Can I ask you something?
Yes.
This is a spoiler, though. I've watched it, and there's a scene at the end, and I would just say, overall, the time is when Elphaba does not have her hat on. It feels like these are moments for her. Is that something that y'all discussed? Because there's a very big moment at the end where she's literally going off into the sunset, no hat. And then there's another moment in a sunset moment where she also doesn't have a hat. But y'all see that later.
Yeah.
Is that something y'all talked about when her hat is present?
We didn't refer to it in that way, where it was with hat and without hat. But that's very astute how you've called that out, because it's true that it is more of Elphaba's internal story and closer to who she truly is. The overall design of For Good and the setup with Wicked, we're moving through visually, or I was designing a visual arc of Elphaba as she realizes herself and her power, and then as she lets that go. And so, that moment that you're speaking of at the very end is who she truly is, and how she has chosen to walk through life, having lived, this period of time as a hero. And I think that it's a beautiful moment. It took us a long time to get to what that was going to be and how it would best reflect. And when I say that, it was me collaborating with Cynthia and then Jon as well, and figuring out what is going to be the most meaningful for that moment, because that's where we leave the audience. And it was really important to get that right.
I think when folks get to the end of For Good, they'll see it what it is. But part one is an unsure girl finding her power. Mm-hmm. And part two is a powerful girl finding out she's a hero. Yeah. And then like the very end is, well, what do you do with that? Like after you've done those chapters. Exactly. And so like, and maybe, find something good.
Exactly.
I love that about the movie. And, just because it's gowns and costumes and fun songs, it can be that profound, which I love.
That's what I love about the way that I approach costumes, is that it's also going to, it has to say something about the characters that are wearing them. It needs to be true to the story that we're telling, and hopefully transcend just the visual, that it will give, be messaging to the audience its own story as we are seeing the rest of it evolve on screen.
And this is with both girls. We spent a lot of time talking about Elphaba, but Glinda too. Like both of their costumes, they're grown-ups. Like they're mm-hmm. older. There's a 4-year gap. There's a maturity to them. There's also a like, I'm going to be this person. Maybe mm-hmm. if either of them believe it. What was on the mood board for what you wanted to see Elphaba change into and what you wanted to see Glinda change into?
Well, for Elphaba, it was very clear to me that I wanted for her to project power and project agility as well, and that we see before our eyes this sense of maturity in this powerful woman. And what I was setting up in Wicked, which is her time at Shiz, was her draw to trousers, her draw to strong boots. Her movement becomes easier. She's more aware of her body, in those earlier years. And then, so that it's not a surprise when we see her in trousers and, just some, there's kicking boots, mm-hmm. But then also this really dramatic sweeping cape and coat. That coat is, it's an upcycle of the trench coat that we see her in when she's in the forest with Fiyero. Oh, wow. And they're riding with the cub, and you see this raincoat that's on the back of the bike. There are a couple of moments where they're just friends, and she's wearing the coat there as well, and they're out in the field. But that's just part of a kind of a sequence of visuals. So to reuse the same design in a different way, and to show how she is crafting and manifesting this new persona, which is the Wicked Witch of the West. It's really exciting.
For the folks that are listening into us right now, you're not going to get this, but please come join us on YouTube, because I am now lifting up the wonderful world, the story of Oz, because we have these incredible sketches that you did. So I'm going to hold them. I'm going to show it to you first so you can see. Tell me a little bit about this one, because we have the Elphaba. I don't even know what you would call this compared to the other ones.
Well, this is the Wicked Witch of the West kind of classic look. So this is where we start in For Good.
And then this one, I guess it's just more detailed, or is this where we end up?
This is where we end up, but she's still, what I was creating, you can see where she's lost her sleeves here. It's that her overall look, her clothes are deteriorating as she's riding through the air, and just everything that it takes to be the superhero that she is.
Yeah, I love it. All right, I'm gonna take those ones back from you, and let's go and talk about it. They can't see this. There's a little bit more décolletage in the second half, and can I just have a moment for the treehouse and Fiyero, this is again a spoiler that we will talk about after the fact, but Elphaba gets a little sexy and some sexy time.
Yeah,
like I saw thighs, I saw legs, I saw all kinds of things.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Those sketches?
She's green through and through.
Listen. Wait till they see that scene. Wait till they see that scene. All right, so this one is actually in the trailer, which is Glinda's wedding dress.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Was simplified from this design, that we did originally, because we really wanted to see Glinda as, she's stripping the idea of good, I guess, that the artifice, just trying to get down to who she truly is. So there was much more focus on kind of a clean silhouette, but then needing for it to be, a wedding dress that would stand up to, the Glinda persona. There are butterflies that are dimensional that are applied in a swirl. It's kind of a trailing swirl that goes along, all of the hem, and then it runs the hem, the edges of the veil, and then in throughout the veil as well. So you see these dimensional butterflies, and then it's supported by gold butterflies that she, as she's going down this huge aisle, very long aisle, and it's a 25-meter train.
Wow.
The butterflies kind of part, they move out of the way, so it makes for a very romantic entrance.
This one is not necessarily a princess moment, but one that folks have been swooning over.
Yes.
And this is Fiyero in his Girls Love a Man in Uniform, let's say it.
Yeah, worn so well by Jonathan Bailey. I mean, is really a heartthrob. This is based on a hussar uniform, the idea of a hussar uniform, because it's, they tend to be, very extreme, over the top, beautiful uniforms. But it's been embroidered with gold bullion banding, and that's done in an Escher-like pattern. So it's, I was always trying to take qualities of, fashion that we know of, but then turning it on its head slightly. So using, that kind of Escher pattern was, it was effective.
Love
Very
that
effective.
one. And then he wasn't dastardly in the first one, but now this costume looks so evil. Like the wizard looks just so evil now, right? And Jeff Goldblum, who can also wear a suit very well. Let's be real.
Yes. I mean, he's a fashionista, in the same way that Cynthia and Ariana are. I mean, they're, and also Michelle. I mean, they love their fashion. So, designing something that would hold up to that, to who he is. Also to tell the story. I mean, his waistcoat carries the eye, the all-seeing eye element, and then also the swirls as well. I mean, all hand embroidered.
This is one I want to talk about because when you decide, well, Miss Marble always has this hair, but it also makes costuming, I think, somewhat challenging sometimes. So talk about putting Michelle in this, where she still has to look her regal self, but it's so much. It's such a theatrical moment.
Well, the Frances Hannon was the hair and makeup designer on this film, and was a wonderful collaborator in developing what how the hair would top off this look that I've created, which is across all of her clothing, there's an element of storm. This kind of churning storm that I've used, and then meteorological symbols and other things that relate to weather, because she is her magic power is that she's able to control the weather and change the weather, and as you'll see, she's the one that conjures the tornado that brings Dorothy's house to Oz. So I wanted to have that element, that thematic element in all of her clothes.
Unfortunately, if folks don't know, the person who's the most victim of that weather, we see right here when we have Nessa and Bach, which their costumes in this one I think is also very reflective. They spend a lot of time together in this one, but Nessa in particular, she just...
Yeah, I mean, she, where we've seen her mostly in creams and whites through Wicked, the first film, because she hardens and becomes this maniacal, kind of governor matron of Munchkinland, I wanted to put her in something that was going to reflect that, and I chose this aubergine color, which is a beautiful color, very elegant color, and then giving her this asymmetry in the closure of her dress, and then also the peak sleeves that we know very well from Elphaba's silhouettes as well.
They're still sisters, even in their distance.
That's
I love
right.
that.
That's right. And then she has those gifted jeweled slippers that she wears that I've also paired with the irregular striped socks that are, again, an Easter egg from the original 1939 film, and the ruby slippers, and just trying to set all of those ideas up. With Bach, it was knowing where he was going to go with his character, what happens to his character. I don't know if we can actually talk about it, but
you absolutely can. Yep,
okay.
Yep, you can talk about it.
But the fact that he transforms into the Tin Man, it was about setting up. Okay, so what qualities can I give Bach as a servant? He's as a footman basically to Nessa Rose. So I put him in a silver covered. It's all embroidered with bullion, and then it's a silvery gray that I've used for his uniform, and then seeing that transform into the Tin Man and all the different pieces from the room kind of coming together to create the body of the Tin Man.
And I just want to say too, because again, we can talk about this because by the time it happens, folks will have seen it, and if you haven't, what are you doing? Both Bach and also with Fiyero go through transformations, and the costumes that you put them in the second half of the film get transformed into their new bodies. And we've already talked about Bach, but I'd love to talk about Fiyero because he becomes the Scarecrow, and he changes so much practically with his face, but it's almost like, it almost feels like a soldier's old uniform that's been left outside for years, and then you know what I mean, just like it would be on a Scarecrow. So talk about how you made it. It's rough. It's a rough costume. Exactly.
I mean, when you look, you were showing the sketch of Fiyero for the wedding. It's that same uniform that I've transformed into the Scarecrow, although choosing different fabrics to, like you were saying, that it's more like sackcloth, the green part, but then the gold actually transforms into woven straw. Yeah. So we get this, it's that, there are these magical elements that in some ways it's like Rumpelstiltskin, where, it's spinning straw into gold. It's going the opposite direction.
Oh, that's a great way.
So I was manipulating the detail to then be reflective of how his body is changed into this Scarecrow. And then, there's wonderful makeup that happens, makeup and wig that's created so that his face is sackcloth, his skin turns to sackcloth, and then his hair becomes grass as well, grass and wheat. It's all, kind of wonderfully magical and, transformative.
And Jonathan Bailey still looks like Jonathan Bailey.
He's still a handsome guy. Yep.
You can say it. I'll just say he looks like Jonathan Bailey. They know what I meant. With a little movie magic, we're actually going to go back. And since, like I said, the archival team gave us these lovely costumes, we're going to go look at them in a little bit more detail. So let's step backwards.
Perfect.
So now we are standing with your incredible creations. And as I mentioned, I want to talk about these shoes because it feels period. It feels Glinda. Break it down for us on these shoes.
All right. Well, this is all custom beading. Yeah, each of these beads has been hand beaded onto the satin, and then it was laid onto leather, and then all of that was created into the shoe.
I mean, they're clear heels, basically.
Yes,
yeah, I mean, like in the best way possible.
Yeah, so you see the swirl that carries thematically throughout her looks. Makes for a very magical shoe. And then you see the earrings that are right next to it, which is her signature spiral as well, reflective of her tiara. I mean, the storytelling element is that it's all reflective of the bubble, so we're always referring back to the bubble as, her signature theme. And then we carry that into the dress, as far as the silhouette, and also the way that the iridescence is handled in the different colors that are painted together, literally painted in the layers of the skirt, but then also with the glass and crystal beading that's hand embroidered onto the bodice as well. But keeping it a very pristine silhouette, a boned shape, that, it is Ariana's size.
Also, I want to mention too that her arms are also with the sheer mesh and there's beading all through that.
That's correct.
How many different layers of sheer do you have that make up the skirt? Because I know there's tulle underneath it, but there's many layers of the fabric.
Right. I mean, she has a hoop skirt underneath, so that's her bottom petticoat layer, and it provides the silhouette. It keeps it a crinoline shape, or this kind of bell shape. And then we have 5 different layers of, there's a taffeta that has been painted kind of ombre, and the color modulates on that. It's a much deeper color. And then tulle, and then organza, satin organza, tulle, and then organza that's been painted.
And then this one too also has all of these incredible sequins that you then layer on top of this glitter version. And so it literally looks like, I don't know, like floating cotton candy.
That's right. I mean, I think that because of the way that the different layers move on top of each other, it provides that always shifting color. That gives us an iridescence that's really quite magical. And then we top with the butterfly wings as well. There's one moment in the new song, "The Girl in the Bubble," where Glinda has to pass through mirrors. So we're seeing an opposite view of her constantly through that number. So we needed to make sure that the wings were the exact same from side to side, because when you see it as a reflection, it needed to then look like it was the opposite of that as well. Wow. So that was
had to work forwards and backwards.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that. All right, let's dive into Elphaba. The thing I want folks to know, because unfortunately you can't really see it unless you get up close, is the texture of this, and the fact that this costume is something that Elphaba probably made herself. So there's a messiness to it a little bit, not an undone quality to it, but she's busy trying to be a hero. So talk a little bit about the textures and how Elphaba made this.
Where I started was, where does Elphaba get these clothes? And so I set up that she would have a trench coat in the first film that would then potentially be taken to her lair, where she was able to recraft it, to upcycle it into the silhouette that we see. It's also carrying all those elements that were, thematically throughout her visual clothing story. And that is, her relationship to the organic, those things that are more connected to the animals. And with that, her connection to tree bark, mushrooms, and things
you can see that in
dark.
there. Yeah.
But is what was also useful is having that variety of texture, because we've got black on black, so it provides more interest in tonality within this costume.
And we didn't talk about it in depth, but there's something to be said for the fact that this is such a green person, black, but it still manages to complement on screen Glinda, who looks like, this was probably crafted by the finest tailors in Oz, but they still work together.
It was a priority for me that both costumes would be able to stand up to each other. The interest that is put into this sparkly gown that is, very elegant and magical just in itself, that Elphaba would appear as interesting, as beautiful, as considered. Because both of these women are very attuned to, what clothing is and how they present. Even as, yes, indeed, Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, but then as Elphaba and Glinda, they're both very considered in how they dress themselves and what they're presenting to the public. So, I think that then becomes reflective of what I have Elphaba in, as it relates to Glinda as well.
And we can't get out of here. One last thing, we got to talk about the hat in detail. So what did Elphaba, or I should say you, do to the hat in the second time around to change it up?
This goes all the way back to my work with Cynthia in Harriet, when I put her in a wide brim hat and I saw how she can wear a hat. And I thought, this is the perfect moment to really capitalize on that the ability to wear a hat in a very dramatic way. Also, it is, it's nostalgic of the original Wicked Witch of the West from 1939 and the size of that hat. That's the classic witch's hat. I mean, that silhouette is reflected in this hat, albeit it's a crooked shape. The brim gives us that drama. And,
yes,
going from the hat that was gifted to Elphaba by Glinda in the first film, how that's a slightly smaller shape, and then it broadens to something that's has much more presence, is much more dashing, just gives you that sense of power.
Just like our Elphaba.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Certainly.
Paul, it was a dream to talk to you about the things that you've seen on the screen and these incredible costumes. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Thank you so much for the conversation.